Start our meeting. If you would, please silence your mobile devices. Has anybody heard from Stephanie Holmes Thomas? Okay, okay. Tell her to stay away from 80, because don't come in on 80. Hey, Councilman, there's one right up underneath you. It should be right here, under your, right here. Should be on.
We got everything, or we just this way? Rick?
Sir?
We got everything up, we just wait.
I didn't understand.
We got everything up, we just wait.
Yeah, we good. We good. We're gonna be all right.
Ready, would you lead us in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, ready? Are we good? At this time, the mayor will call to order the regular city council meeting for 6 p.m. Tuesday, July 18th of 2023, City Council Chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. We have with us District 2, Grady Simpson, District 3, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem. We have District 5, Phil Robinson. District 4 is on her way. She's going to be running late. When she gets here, we'll enter her name into the record. Also, we have staff. At this time, if you would, please stand for invocation. Remain standing for American flag, Texas flag.
All our heads, please. Father God, we come giving you thanks for this day. We thank you for keeping us. Thank you for your guidance. We ask for your continued guidance and wisdom for the city of Terrell and for our great nation. All in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Grady, for invocation. Next on the agenda is mayor and council community recognition and events. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring forward?
Yes, Mayor. A community recognition of Lily Marie White, whose funeral, shall I say, celebration, we had on Friday afternoon. She lived to 103 and accomplished a lot of things, here in our great city. I know growing up watching her, she was always elegant and pleasant to speak with. But the proclamation was read as, whereas Lily Marie Henderson Prince White was born February the 6th, 1920 in Terrell to the late Moss Henderson and the late Nina Flowers Henderson, and whereas Lily Marie White was preceded in death by her siblings, Annie Ruth Henderson, Leon Henderson, Turner Henderson, Zelma Henderson, Cleophas Henderson, Jessie Mae Henderson, and Moselle Henderson. And whereas Lily Marie White, while graduated from Burnett High School and married Fred Edward Prince in 1937. Whereas the couple had one child, Velma Prince. And whereas after the death of her husband, Lily married Mr. Turner White and remained married until his death. And whereas Miss White loved and cared for others deeply, making members of our congregation and others feel special through her generosity and preparation of delicious meals. And whereas Miss White was a graduate of Madam C.J. Walker School of Cosmology, and whereas Miss White was a gifted cosmetologist, an internationally known seamstress who left a mark on the beauty and fashion industries throughout the years, and whereas Miss White served as mentor, providing godly wisdom to those who sought her counsel, and whereas Miss White was preceded in death by her daughter, Dr. Velma Prince Smith, Now therefore, I, Grady Simpson, a member of the City Council, and with the mayor on behalf of the City of Terrell, has proclaimed July 14, 2023 as Lily Marie Henderson Prince White Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Grady. Anyone else? No. Hearing none, we will move on. We have our hear remarks from visitors. Again, this is the time that is set aside by the council to hear remarks from the visitors, from the public comments. During this time, you are asked to address the mayor and the council. We won't engage in back and forth, but you will have 3 minutes to address the council. First is David Wallace. If you would, please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am David Wallace. I'm president of the board of Kaufman County Emergency Service District Number 3. Our board has been notified by attorneys that Kaufman County ESD Number 3 and the City of Terrell should have an interlocal agreement. Our board is willing to meet with the city officials and anyone at any one of our board members. I can leave a card with her. Thank you very much. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Next is Sean Valk.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Sean Valk, 1450 South Teal Townsend, Suite 100, Rockwall, Texas. We own roughly 9 acres of land at 15457 South Highway 205. I was here before you, some of you, January 10th, with issues we were having. We're in the ETJ over there, and we're required to do our plating through the city. We submitted our application August 29th, 2022. The first response we got back from the city, which was Omira, was November 16th of 2022. The next correspondence was December 17th, 2022, where she said that she could not find our paperwork, our application, or our files. December 9th, we told her that we left a thumb drive as well as the hard copies. 3 days later, December 19th, she said you found them. We didn't hear anything from her from December 19th until I showed up here January 10th. I came here January 10th, spoke before you, gave you the same story, the same complaints, and the next day, miraculously, your efforts or somebody's efforts helped. We got correspondence from Omira. We got on the January 26th Planning and Zoning Commission docket, approved 5-0. Went to City Council, February 7th, approved, I believe, 7-0. 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, we were able to get our building permit from Kaufman County. And during that process, I wasn't there, but a staff member that I have was there. And through that meeting, we were informed that we were annexed into the city. So through the course of our application on August 29th and the various emails, the various meetings, the various submittals, Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council, we were never notified that we were going to be annexed, or we never had the opportunity to address that or dispute that or do anything with that. I contacted the prior property owner. She hadn't gotten anything in the mail. We never received anything in the mail from the city. Dawn was very helpful. I spoke to her on the phone. We realized that, or we determined that the Kaufman County Appraisal District, I guess, never took the recorded deed and split anything. They never did anything with it. But the prior owner never got notification. And then I thought to myself yesterday, I thought, well, you know, it's interesting because we got an application on file with our address and a description of the property and the legal. So, I mean, the city had that information. They could have contacted us. They could have sent us an email. They could have forwarded that. They could have said something along the way, and they never did. So we never had any knowledge of that. And so it's frustrating, I guess, from our part, because now we have a piece of property. You know, I don't know if we lost the window or not, but I mean, I have legal counsel now that's looking into it, which obviously we'll reach out to Greg at some point in time and figure it out. But we spent millions of dollars getting to the point that we're at, and the potential of spending tens of more millions of dollars at developing it. And being that we're annexed into the city, if we're annexed into the city, we're subjected to certain things that could harm us and cause us damage. And if I would have known that was the case, we bought the property June of last year. If I'd have known that, we'd have never bought the property. And had we been notified properly, we could have at least spoke to somebody or dealt with it accordingly, and we were never afforded that opportunity. And so I'm doing my research, and I'm trying to find out what's going on, and apparently we're not the only ones. I mean, I know two people that didn't get notification, us and the lady we bought from. And I know that not anybody here necessarily is at fault or to blame. I'm not casting stones. I'm just sharing information and frustration, and I guess we'll work through it and work it out. Thank you kindly for your time.
Thank you for your words. Thank you.
Yep.
Next is Gal Surratt. Okay. All right. So that's all of the remarks. You have anybody else, Don? That's it? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes. Discuss and consider the minutes from the regular city council meeting on June the 27th of 2023. Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt the meeting minutes as presented from the regular city council meeting on June 27, 2023.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting on June the 27th of 2023 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is public hearing. Greg, would you read into the record, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we are to conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding a zone change from commercial C to townhouse residential TH12 on property located at 109, 115, and 201 Dulles Street, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, zoning change 23-04.
All right, this is going to be handled by our Omira Mata.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, we have a zone change from commercial to townhome residential. Maybe not? There we go. Awesome. So just for clarification purposes, Nash Moore is down there at the bottom. They're on the south side of your screen. This is on the corner of Nash and Dulles. It's the property highlighted in red. The applicant came forward and wants to rezone this property. It is currently 3 separate parcels. They are already platted. As you can see here on the map on your screen, the zoning is currently commercial. Everything to the north, west, and a little bit on the corner of High and Dulles is townhome residential. So all of that area there is townhome residential, which is why the applicant is coming forward wanting to do townhome residential on this property. He did mention that he wants to build single-family homes on this property, and per the zoning ordinance, you are able to build single-family homes in multifamily and townhome zoned areas as long as they meet our single-family 7.5 standards. So he is aware of that, and that is exactly the direction he wants to go through. The future land use map here, you can see the little shaded purple area is going to be a mixed use neighborhood, and everything in the yellow to the north is going to be traditional neighborhood. So since it is right there on that corner, staff does recommend approval of the requested zone change from commercial to townhouse. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted last month to approve this zone change by a 6-0 vote.
Thank you, Ms. Mata. This is a public hearing, so what we'll do is we'll open the public hearing, come back and receive questions from the council. All right? At this time, we will open the public hearing to consider any information from the public. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this matter? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing, and we will move on to item 7.2. Ms. Mata, if you've come forward again, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Item 7.2, we will discuss and consider ordinance number 2991, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell by changing the zoning classification on certain real property more particularly described as part of Lot 4 and all of Lot 4C, Block 131, Moore and Nash addition to the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, and also known as 109, through 115 to 120 Dulles Street, Terrell, Texas, from Commercial C to Townhouse House 12, TH 12, as shown on the plat attached here to as Exhibit A, and made a part hereof for all purposes, providing for severability and providing an effective date, ZC 23-04. This comes to you tonight on first reading.
So, Ms. Mata, I just want to confirm that this was a P and Z 6-0 vote?
That is correct,
And that
yes,
the
sir.
staff is recommending that we move forward with this?
Staff is
approval.
recommending approval, yes,
All
sir.
right, does anybody have any questions for Ms. Mata on this item?
I have a couple quick questions. I actually went and took a look at this area. So the adjacent area right there, where it's still going to remain. If you can pull it up the map, we're rezoning the area outline, but leaving that little area to the east of it zoned commercial. Is there a reason why we're leaving it and not rezoning the entire area? It might cause problems down the road with a commercial area right next to this residential area. Might get out in front of that and rezone it all. Is there?
Yes, sir, absolutely. So the 3 areas that are highlighted, those are owned by the property owner that came forward.
Okay.
The other properties are owned by separate owners, and they did not come forward with a zone change.
Okay. And one other quick piece, I listened to the planning and zoning meeting, and there was one resident who came forward with some concerns. She had sort of some issues with an invalid husband, I believe, is how she described it, and she had a lot of issues with it. She didn't want her life to be complicated by development next door to her. Have we done anything to address her concerns, or are we sort of, you don't know what lady I'm talking about in the meeting?
Yes, sir, I do. If I remember correctly, Mr. Snap can correct me if I'm wrong, but the property that she was referring to was located separately from this surrounding area. It was a little further off than we intended, so it wasn't adjacent to anything.
Okay. Makes sense. I'd also just like to kind of make sure if we're offering her any kind of services she might need, because it did seem very concerning, her situation, if she needs some kind of public assistance. So I think we might follow up with that. But sure, I think that covers my questions.
Bill, to the left,
Uh-huh.
right there.
Right there.
Where the cursor is, that's the property that she was referencing in the meeting. And that was not, the purpose of the meeting was to rezone the 3 properties.
Okay, and
She
she's,
lives adjacent to that, and she had an issue with the debris and
yeah,
items that were in the yard.
and we're going to kind of complicate her life with all this stuff going on right next to her, already a complicated situation with her husband, or his mobility issues and everything else.
He had some mobility and some
Yeah.
health issues.
Okay. Just want to make sure that was noted.
Anyone else?
No questions for staff, just council member discussion.
So amongst us, we need a question on the table. So once the motion is made, unless you want to direct it to Ms. Mata.
No direction to Ms. Matad. Motion to approve ordinance number 2991 as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Phil Robinson, District 5, to approve ordinance number 2991. Is there any discussion?
This property is in District 3, and I've spoken both to Ms. Mata and the owner of the lots as well. And we've discussed that although the proposed change is to townhouse, as Ms. Mata indicated, you can build single-family housing here, and he has also shared the design of those proposed houses, of 2 of the houses that he'll come forth with first for building with city staff, which will be the next step for this property owner. I think, at first I was hesitant for townhouses specifically in this area next to the existing neighborhood. However, this owner plans to build single-family housing. There was a house on the middle lot that was deteriorating. Nobody was living in the home. So I'm glad to see that, we're cleaning up this section of the neighborhood, and the plan will be to place new houses here, and I would be in favor to continue to move forward with this portion of the process, which is to rezone from commercial to townhouse in this case.
Thank you, council. Anytime we have an opportunity to improve the infield in and around the city, that's a good thing for us to do. Anyone else? All right, there's a motion, again, from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Phil Robertson, District 5. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 8.1. To discuss and consider the award of contract for June Heresy project. This is going to be Jeremy. Come forward.
So, Mayor, while Jeremy's coming forward, I'll mention to you that Councilwoman Stephanie Thomas and I have talked about this a great deal. This was a site of some water leak problems over the last 12 months or so. She's been out on site talking to residences. I've been outside on site talking to residences. So we're very glad to move this forward. I'm sorry that Councilwoman Thomas had a schedule conflict getting here today, because I can assure you she's been watching this one like a hawk on behalf of her residents in her district. So, Jeremy, take it away.
Before we begin, do you know, Mike, if she's supportive of this or not?
Yes, sir, I believe she is supportive of this.
Would it be all right, appropriate? If I delay?
You can pass this, Mr. Mayor, till later on in the meeting.
Yeah, let's give her an opportunity, since this is her district. I would hope that we would do that for each one of us. Is she still on her way?
We believe she's en route and should
Okay, yeah, let's pass on this one, and then we'll bring her back up. So, well, if there's no objection, I'd like to suspend the rules and move over to 8.2. Is there any objection? Hearing none, we will move on to 8.2. Sorry about that. You know I wasn't going to let you off that easy, man. You're new. All right, go. 8.2, this is Glenn Caldwell. Discuss and consider adoption of resolution number 2083 for the TPWD Local Parks Grant application. Mr. Caldwell.
Mr. Mayor, Council, it's always a pleasure and honor to come before you. What you should have before you a resolution, and in this resolution is a beautiful thing. We've been working on opportunities to work toward obtaining a grant for Kings Creek Park. Obviously, we're at the preliminary phases of all of this, so our goal is to get through the initial part of it, which is the application, and that's what this resolution is going to hopefully do, allow us to enter an application with the Texas Parks and Wildlife. As you can see, a couple key components I want to bring forward in the resolution. Obviously, the grant is $750,000. Obviously, it's a 50-50 match, which means that would be a spend of $1.5 million. Again, there's an attachment A and B in this resolution, which we'll go over a little bit later. Key component, we're asking, hopefully, that the council allow the city manager to administer and work through this grant application. I would like to move forward to the next item associated, and that's going to be your Exhibit A. This is only a draft of what we're proposing through the application process. This is a 1-mile trail. We're hoping to build it, if approved, 8 feet wide, possibly 10 feet wide, depending on the cost outcome after we go through all the phases. As you can see, the outline, the boundary of it is the solid line, which shows the total circumference of the park. You've got trail lighting, which will be included, culvert work that will need to be installed, picnic tables, a picnic grove, which is up to the northeast of the map. You also have a tree buffer along I-20 as a sound barrier. We would like to relocate the basketball court as well as install a restroom, which that park has never had. Again, here's a cost breakout of the estimated dollar amount. We're looking at, again, $1.5 million, which will include, obviously, we'll need to do surveying. We'll also need to do RS, which is the ADA specialist that have to do a little work, as well as archaeologists because of the floodplain in the area. We also have our grant administrator that will do a ton of work on getting this across the finish line. We also have the design. And in all projects, we're definitely we'll have to consider some portion of that being a contingency. So with that, I'll kind of give you a quick snapshot of our timeline. Did you want to add something, Mr. Sims?
Just take a minute to go back to the map so that a issue is clear on the map. So just in terms of coordinating one project against another, keep in mind that the Texas Department of Transportation is well along its way planning a frontage road along Interstate 20 in this zone. So they'll have a frontage road here that will run from State Highway 34 all the way over to the Wilson Road exit over to the Trinity Valley Community College and the TA truck stop. When they build that, they are rather very, very likely to end up ripping out that tree barrier that you see on the north side of that. To us, that would be devastating for the park and for the neighborhood because that really would totally change the sense that you have that you're in a protected parkland area. The feedback that we've gotten over the years from all the folks at the Kings Creek neighborhood is keep it quiet, keep it, you know, in the background, keep it a quiet place as much as they possibly can. So we want to get ahead of the TxDOT construction, get a berm or a row of trees, maybe multiple row of trees where that green line is, just get them started growing far enough away from the edge that it's something that whenever, if TxDOT does meet my expectation and end up tearing that tree line out, then we'll already have a tree line far enough away from the edge of the interstate to be able to preserve those trees during any of those I-20 construction issues. So that was part of it, and also that picnic grove with that circle in there, that's also the same idea. It's, you know, put another group of trees in there right at that conflict point to try as much as possible to block noise coming off of Interstate 20 in the future. Better to get the trees growing now, and we've got some grant eligibility now to move forward on. So I just want to make sure you understand the overlap between projects there. So again, take it away, Glenn.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sims. A couple of highlights that I want to point out. The goal is to submit the application by August the 1st. We will need to do certifications and assurances by July 26th. So we are on a fast track with this particular item. Texas Parks and Wildlife usually considers awards at the May Commission meeting. So we definitely want to get this in and get those guys moving forward. And probably at the end of the day, late May of 2024 is probably a good time period. The month of May is the goal for us to look toward. The grant contracts are generally issued 3 months to 15 months following the award. And again, if this is approved, we're awarded the grant. Usually they run about 3 to 4 years through the contract with the Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Okay.
I'll open up for, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go to the financial page, the 1.5 million.
Oh. Go ahead.
There you go. Yeah, that one. So this is a turnkey project at the 1.5 million. That means all of the surveys, architect, grant, administration, design, everything's included in that 1.5.
That is correct, Mayor. Keep in mind, this is only a opinion of probable cost.
Right. No, but you've got 301,295, 30 as a line item to cover all of those softer costs.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Does anybody have any questions for?
Can Glenn clarify for everybody first the percentage for local match, the percentage for Texas Parks and Wildlife?
Sure. It's a 50-50 match. 750 city, 750 grant.
So we're able to parlay $750,000 and get a $1.5 million project through?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
All right. We'll start with the district councilwoman.
Glenn, so excited to have this project come forward. I know we've been working longer than I hoped to on this specific project. When we first brought this project to the community, there were what I'll call bigger plans for more activity in this area, and we took community member feedback on keeping the neighborhood quiet and taking in mind increasing walkability, or adding really walkability in the park. for those community members. And as I was looking at the map, I had a question about, what exactly is a picnic grove? Is it just a designated area where you will have, is that what you call a designated area for picnic tables? Is it some sort of structure?
I would say grove just carries the word that you're going to get probably a nice design from a landscape architect there. So the circle is really just, to me, showing you where. We think a good landscape architect could get you a series of picnic tables under a series of trees, design it in a really nice way, and make sure you've got some good shade out there at that location. You've already got a pavilion. We're looking for a way to get something soft out there. Don't add another major structure to the park. You've already got some structures over where the parking lot is, but just have a soft area at the edge of the park where you've got some more stuff growing. And we think a landscape architect will knock that out of the ballpark sometime with more details associated with that design.
As I'm, the playground, how much longer do we anticipate a playground like that? Or what's the lifetime of the playground that we have? As I'm looking at this design, now I'm wondering if there's time to include, a enhancement to the playground that we have there, if it can make it into the grant.
Okay, I think that's a great idea. We'll definitely take that in consideration and incorporate a possibility of expansion of the current playground area. And let's see where the costs come in at. I think it'll be a great idea to add it to the project.
So am I hearing that, do we have the flexibility? Is the flexibility now before we submit the grant to where we have to include it now? Or depending on where we're at with funds, then we could add it after the grant?
We can definitely incorporate it later because it's an amenity to the park. So we can do it now, or we can do it a little bit later. It's kind of like the lighting. We can choose to install the lighting, or we can do something else in lieu of lighting, maybe more benches or more trash cans, things of that nature. So that those area items would fall in the category.
Yeah, think of this as the version that got your park board pleased and willing to recommend this to you. And if we win the grant, then what will happen is that Glenn will select a landscape architect, a team to do the design. We'll take it back to the park board. If the park board shifts this around, adjusts it, looks at it a year and a half from now and says, hey, maybe this isn't exactly what we wanted that we voted on back in 2023, we want to make an adjustment. We have actually found Texas Parks and Wildlife to be a lot easier to work with than, say, TxDOT when you do an application like this. So I don't know that you'll run into any problems with shifting things around when you get to the May of 24, you find out you win it, you get a designer on board, and you're somewhere in fall of 2024 talking to the park board. If they shift a few things, Glenn will just run it back through Texas Parks and Wildlife, and I don't think you'll end up with a problem there.
Thank you.
Good, Councilwoman. Anyone else? Oh, Grady.
Yes, Mr. Caldwell. In regards to the bathroom facilities, is it the same one that you showed us over at Ben Gill Park? What was the name of those facilities?
No, sir, it is not. This one is going to be twice the size. It'll accommodate 2 to 3 people versus 1 stall per restroom. So
Easy
we upside.
clean.
Easy clean,
Yeah.
low maintenance, just major durable. They're durable. If you, I hate to say this, but if we look to the north of us, and I would say visit Rockwall. Rockwall has installed a number of these modular units, and they are well pleased with the end results. So,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Councilman.
So I do have some concerns about the price of the bathroom. $335,000 for a restroom installation seems pretty steep in my estimation. There's some homes that cost, around the $300,000 mark. What is the reasoning for the cost being so high for that restroom?
Well, I'll try to make this as soft as possible. I have not, as of today, seen a home built at even $400,000 that you can take a fire hose into and clean it, pressure wash it. Vandalism, if you get graffiti on it, guess what? We've had vandalism on the unit that we have at Ben Gill Park today. It usually takes a ton of money to address those issues when people vandalize them and put graffiti on them. We've had 3 vandalisms on that modular restroom since it's been in its place today. And I don't think not one of you have a clue that that occurred because it was immediate, it was instant. The components that these units are built out of, they're designed to withstand a high volume abuse. I'll compare it to a prison cell. Most homes don't have steel sinks and laboratories in them. These do. And they're just proven. They've been proven over time, sir.
And I'm sure it's a nice bathroom. I'm sure it's easy to clean. Those are all, great features of a bathroom. I still think the cost is pretty exorbitant from my estimation. And that's kind of the biggest red flag for me. What's the need to reconstruct the basketball surface? Is the current one problematic?
Currently, it's lived its life cycle, and it's not suitable for use to date. It'd be a great opportunity to remove and relocate and replace that unit.
Yeah.
I have Mr. Rogers, the city engineer or director. I don't know your new title, but it's a real nice one. He can tell you the lifespan of that, and I don't know the exact date, but I know it's lived its life cycle.
Okay. Yeah. So this seems like a great project to me, minus the bathroom. Personally, I feel like that's a little exorbitant, but that's all I have.
So, yeah, but, and I've had that addressed too, but materials are one thing. And then the other one that we need to look at is the cost if there is vandalism and we have to send a crew out there versus one person with the power washer just to hit it, right? So we save money on that end as far as the labor cost and being able to address other areas of the city and not have them at these restrooms. That's just something to take into consideration. But,
That's right.
yeah.
Something I didn't share, Mayor and Council. The current modular restroom that you see at Breezy Hill, there was a fire set on that unit. If you'd have set a fire in any of our other restrooms, they would have been burned to the ground. They'd have been crisp. You don't have a clue that occurred. And that's what we love. You're buying value. You're investing in something that's going to give you something that will last and be there when we need it. And we needed it.
So, yeah, and to be clear for everybody, it's not that we're overbuying and we're asking for materials that are high cost because they look good. We're getting the materials that are needed for low maintenance, and we're saving money on that side. So it's a balance between the two. And I guess a good deal would be to go to Rockwall if this is where you're saying there's one located and look at it. It's not that it's fancy or anything like that. It's just durable, and that's what you're paying for.
And mobile.
I would just take
Durability.
everybody back to the process steps here. We do an application. Hopefully we win. The park board can go take a look at it. If the park board looks at the cost breakdown that you have in front of you and they say, you know what, we'd really rather do playground or fill in the blank as opposed to restroom out there at that location, then the park board can vet that during the design process, and the park board might be making a recommendation for something different to you a year and a half from now. So I would just say, we love these. We want to make a really good estimate for you, show you what the battle plan is at this time. But by all means, if the final decision isn't restroom for whatever reason, then you'll hear that back from your park board.
That's great.
So one final question. So with regard to an expense like that, are we taking multiple bids or multiple different estimates on what it costs, and this is kind of the lowest bid we got, or is this a mid bid, or
No.
what? How does
This
that
is a
get at that
opinion
figure?
of probable cost only, construction cost, and it's only an estimate. Once this is approved, we're awarded the grant, it will go through the design phases, and once the plans are completed, we will advertise and bid that project. And that's when we get into the meats and bones of the cost. That's where that occurs.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for clarity, and that's a good question. If we get the bids back and it's more than 1.5, there may be an adjustment made by the council or the park board that says, hey, we need to bring this back down, that's affordable for us. Or we may be able to save some money somewhere that we don't see yet. So those are all good questions. I appreciate everybody's comments on that. And this is just to start the grant process.
That's it.
There's no,
Yes, sir.
we're not saying we're spending $1.5 million. We got to go through the grant process, get it, and then we got to match the funds.
That's correct, sir.
All right.
Right, and we do have to try to get that get the free money first.
Yeah.
And what I'll also add, to address the question of the basketball court is that the basketball court, many years ago was built in an area where it floods. So that's what prevents, has eroded, the usage of the basketball facility. So you really, and there's no, it's all grass in between the playground and the basketball court. So, just trying to get there, flooding, et cetera, is one of the reasons, or the major reasons that there's a proposition to move that basketball court and altogether. And from a former park board member, tell you that the major item, the consistent item that we would see would be vandalism to your restroom. So that means your community members can't use it until you are able to install a new bathroom. I've learned people will jump on top of the, where you wash your hands, the sink, and just destroy things, and you just can't use it any longer. Of course, always a fan of being able to get the most out of what we can for a low cost of dollars, and we'll continue to challenge staff in that area. And the park board, along with the paddock board, have moved in a direction in this last year to install bathrooms, replace or and add bathrooms throughout all of the parks. They're moving in that direction, so you should see more of these modular bathrooms throughout the city of Terrell. But once again, I would also always encourage staff to find prices that are lower.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody have any more questions for Glenn? Thank you, Glenn. The item is 8.2, and it's resolution number 2083. Is there a motion? To the,
Yes, sir.
just, yeah,
Application.
just for the grant. That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Have a motion to approve resolution number 2083.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve Resolution 2083 as presented. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Grady? Are you, make sure you have your, are the mics on? Everybody have their mics on? Okay. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 8.3. Greg, would you read that into?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight ordinance number 2998, an ordinance of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Appendix 1 fee schedule of the Terrell City Code of Ordinances, Section 3, athletic fields, fees and charges, providing for severability, providing a penalty, and providing an effective date. This comes to you tonight on first reading.
Good afternoon, council.
Oh, hey, Glenn. Y'all switched on me. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So before we get into the actual ordinance, the fee schedule before you, I'll give you a brief background. On June 8th, the Park Board discussed and considered the revised athletic field fee ordinance, and the Park Board's votes were unanimous on all changes. The changes were suggested to align with the local market because the city was missing opportunities to capture revenue up to several $1,000s. The athletic field fee ordinance was below market and needed an increase to the tournament fee rates for non-city leagues. As you can see on the actual ordinance itself, The following schedule of the fees for the use of athletic fields at the municipal parks shall be and such hereby adopted and established as follows. Athletic fields user fees for all city leagues is $5 per participant per season. The athletic fields user fees for the non-city leagues, practice fees for the teams, practices, or independent games for no field prep and no lighting is $25 per hour. With lighting, that's additional $25 per hour. All tournament fees will be per team, per day, $150 for one-day tournaments, and then per team, per day for $100 two-day tournaments. And the penalties, any person violating any of the provisions of the section shall be deemed guilty of the misdemeanor, and upon conviction of thereof, shall be fined in any sum not to exceed $500. I'll open for any questions.
Hey, Carnell, clarify for everybody, Section 3, Part 1, athletic field user fees for all city leagues. Tell us what change was made there.
There was no change on the Section 3.
So, but all city leagues, we left it alone, no
Yes, sir.
change. So
Yes, sir.
everything that Carnell is updating here is Part 2, the user fees for non-city leagues.
And I wasn't there, but I'm sure that the discussion was people coming from outside the city using our facilities and taking advantage of our low rates and making more money for their either I don't know if it's a nonprofit or for-profit, either way, they're using our facilities, but it also takes away from the ability of Terrell teams to use it for practice and to play. So I don't have a problem with it. I guess the one question I would have on the lighting, because I see, as I travel 9th Street often, that the lights are on out at the parks. Who monitors that?
We do.
We do? So you know when it's on? Does somebody get a,
So through our Terrell Parks and Rec website, somebody will register and they would apply to get that time slot for either practices or games. And then our Parks Department, Parks Foreman, will set the times for when those are scheduled.
because I've seen where, I've driven by the softball fields, baseball fields, seen those on, but it looks like only one field's being utilized, but all the fields are on. Do they all come on at once, or can you manage each field?
Not sure on that question. Ms. Caldwell, do you have an answer to that?
So, Mr. Mayor, Council, one of the things we've got to remember is on our fields, you have the baseball complex and you have the softball complex. One of the complexes is controlled through Musco, where we can control each individual field. The other 4 fields that we have out there, we have to manually turn those on and off. And we do have staff members, and you're right, there are times when lights are turned on, depending on the circumstances, if there's an event or if there's something else going on around the area and there's a need for additional lighting, you will find those on periodically. And that's one of the decisions that's usually made by the events that are happening at that particular time, as well as discretion of our staff if needed. Or there's instances when the fields may be rented and they don't show up. That doesn't change the timer because we do not have anyone 24/7 out there monitoring whether those teams show up. So there's a variation of causes for the lights to be on.
That's a great explanation as to why that might occur. I just wanted to make sure we weren't being wasteful with electricity or energy. On the event side, I agree with you. Whenever there's a football game or something like that, and you want to give, for security purposes, have those lights on, I don't have a problem with that. Anybody have any questions directed to staff? Go ahead, Phil.
I have a couple of questions. So in the context of this resolution, what constitutes a city league versus a non-city league? What do we mean by that terminology?
So for city leagues, those are the leagues that we have a facility use agreement with. So those are vetted and approved by staff. Those are be considered city leagues.
Okay.
And let me help Mr. Horn with that. We have what's called a city league where we have nonprofit organizations that enter a facility use agreement during the period of their seasons. It can be with football, it's with baseball, it's with soccer. Those sports, they enter a facility use agreement. Once they enter that facility use agreement, they've got the rights to the facility during their seasons. So you have, in many instances, baseball, you have multiple seasons. That gives them the right to be in authority or control of those fields for the teams that are participating in the local league.
And what's the process for entering into that facility use agreement? What would the team have to do to get involved in that agreement?
They'll have to contact their local or the facility use, the entity that applied for that facility use agreement. So let's say if I had a nonprofit and I started a baseball league, and I, obviously, first come, first serve, you apply, you meet all the requirements as a nonprofit, we meet with you, we enter into an agreement with you, then each team will contact that entity. So you've got Terrell Youth Football Association. So a team, we will refer each individual that wants to participate to that entity, that nonprofit entity that's hosting the league. Basically, essentially, they're hosting and controlling the flow of the league.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we're not being too prohibitive with our park areas for people who want to use them. Is the process clear? Say if I was trying to start a league or I wanted to have my friends go play soccer, is the process clear for how to get involved and enter into that agreement? How do they find the details on how to enter into that agreement?
Sure, it's on the website.
Okay.
They can call our office. They can, as well, they can call our staff individually. They can reach out to that league that has the facility use agreement during that time period. And keep in mind, Council, I'll share with, some of you already know this. With our field facilities, you brought up a good point. What if a group wants to go out and just utilize the facilities and we have a facility use agreement in place? At what point in time will it allow us to manage the maintenance of the fields? Because if you run them in the ground, then there's nothing at all for no one. So that's a part of the management of regulating when and who and how the fields can be utilized. If it's out of season, if we're out of season, or if there's a available window that we can allow entities to utilize the field, we do take that into account and we do allow them to use the field, sir.
Okay, one last piece. Do we feel like making it a misdemeanor and the $500 fine, that seems to be a bit overkill to me. You know, you're using the field.
Well,
Those are maximums. Those are
Okay.
something maximums.
Okay,
That is a ceiling that's placed on the municipal court judge.
Sure.
It's the most they could find. It doesn't have to be that amount. It can be anything up to that amount.
okay, not to exceed 500.
Not to exceed.
And, but they would have get a misdemeanor if they were on the
Class
field, Class C misdemeanor? Yeah, okay. That to me also seems a bit extreme for going to play on a field, you know, but that's just my perspective on, it just seems a little harsh.
so from my experience, and I'll be really short, sir, Mr. Councilman, what you run into in facilities is an entity will rent the field. And then another group shows up and takes control of the field before they arrive.
Gotcha.
Okay, I don't need to say any more,
Yeah,
sir.
that makes sense. Okay, yeah.
Well, I guess for clarity, the penalties are there to discourage anybody from doing that. We don't want, we're not chasing the $500, and we don't want you to get a Class C misdemeanor. That's just there so you think twice before you do something, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That's
I just
correct,
want to
Mr.
make sure.
Mayor.
Go ahead. Anyone else?
The updated fees in section 2, what cities are those numbers comparable to?
There's a number of cities. You want to answer that? Or?
Forney, Sigerville, Sunnyvale, Rockwall, we've looked at every city in the general area and compared pricing.
Thank you.
Ready? Stephanie? And again, that was unanimously approved by the park board, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Great presentation. Is there a motion on ordinance number 2998?
Yes, Mayor, a motion to approve ordinance 2998.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. And for the record, we do have Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor for Pro Tem for District 4 with us now. A motion and a second to approve ordinance number 2998. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries with 3-1 vote. Next item on the agenda, if there's no objection, the mayor would like to move back to item 8.1 now that we have our District 4 rep with us and consider, is there any objection? With suspension of the rules, we will move back to discuss and consider the award of contract for June and Heresy project. This is going to be Jeremy. Go ahead.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Welcome, Councilmember Holmes. Brought forth is the discuss and consider award for the contract for the June Heresy project, which is a project to abandon a aged water main. We have received 7 qualified bids during our advertisement process. After the review of these bids by the RJN group, we received a letter of recommendation for the Gomez Brother Construction to be awarded, since they were the lowest bidders. In your packet, you would see the 7 bidders and see that the Gomez Brothers came in at $1.6 million for this project. Any questions?
So is this the not to exceed number for this, right? Of $1,683,816?
Yes, sir.
And then have we done work with Gomez Brothers before?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we're comfortable with those as
Yes, sir.
contractors. Okay, does anybody have any questions for our staff? Jeremy? Nope. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that presentation. Is there a motion to consider the contract for the June Heresy project to the Gomez Brothers in the amount of $1 million, not to exceed $1,683,816?
Thank you guys for waiting on me. I appreciate that. I move to make a motion to accept the bid for the Gomez Brothers Construction Incorporation, $1,683,816 to be awarded and to not exceed that amount.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 4, a second from Phil Robertson, District 5, to approve the contract for not to exceed $1.683,816 to the Gomez Brothers. Is there any further discussion? I knew the councilwoman was wanting to do that, so that's why. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 9.1.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, item 9.1 is to discuss budget and strategic plan schedule.
This is Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, we're going to take a look just real quickly at a couple of schedules to see how we're doing here. So July 24th is the day we get our certified values from Kaufman County Appraisal District. This is the compressed timetable that started happening after Senate Bill 2, where we've got to give adequate time down at the appraisal district for folks to challenge values and that sort of thing. So there's always a lot of discussion down in Kaufman about that topic, but the Kaufman Central Appraisal District does that work, and they are required by state law to hit that July 24th date. And so that's generally what we've seen, is that because they've got so much work to do down there, that we'll probably get that data on the 24th. Shelley Wallace and I will sit down and crank out your tax rate for you and have an estimate for your tax rate for you on July the 28th. That'll be posted on your website on that day, and then your budget retreat is actually August 3rd and 4th. And then you can see everything just really runs fast after that. So you've got a draft budget. that you'll see again on the website on the 28th, but you get a second crack of talking about it on the August 8th agenda. You send some public notifications out to the newspaper right after the August 8th time period. On August the 22nd, you get a review of the budget and a vote on that debt issuance, and that we've talked about before on the 2023 COs. That's August the 22nd. So you'll have had your tax rate available to you before you make your vote on August the 22nd. Your final discussion on the budget will be August the 29th. And then on August the 5th, you've got a tax rate hearing. You got a public hearing on the budget. You got a first reading on a tax rate ordinance. And that's one of those votes that we do by roll call. And that's a vote that gets immediate action, right? So there's no second reading on your tax rate. Then your budget ordinance gets in place along with that, and so on down the line. So budget ordinance actually gets a second reading after that, and then we'll immediately do our public hearings on water and wastewater rates and stormwater rates and all of the other rate ordinances. Those all happen on September 12th and September 19th. So that's a busy schedule, and it's a state law-driven process. You really have to work within those time constraints in order to do your budget in the timely manner that the state is asking you to do it. The next page or two shows you back over to the strategic plan. We started that in March. We did presentations from police and animal control, fire, and emergency management back in March. Took a breather, did June 27th to talk about municipal court and the 10-year capital plan. June 29th was our workshop. I want to thank all the city council for participating in a full-day workshop there. We covered all the topics that you see there before you during that during the strategic plan workshop on June 29th. And then tonight we'll cover human resources and finance. Then next week we'll see another edition of the Glenn Caldwell Show when he does the public services side of the three-year strategic plan. You'll get a draft document by email from Dora and Omira at some point here in the next few weeks. And August 1st, that's your vote on the final document. So as you're looking at those presentations, looking at that information, get us the input that you have. I'm trying to schedule individual feedback times with everybody. I had a meeting with Councilman Simpson today to go through his. We're scheduling one with the mayor. I think me and Mr. Robeson, Councilman Robeson, are about to schedule a meeting to get some input on this and some other topics. No one will be surprised that when I asked to meet with Councilwoman Velasquez, she said that she'd be working on it and generate and email me a large document. And I can count on that. And that will also be scheduling a time with Councilwoman Holmes Thomas as well to round out all of that. So again, condensed schedule, but it is what it is. We've got a lot of work to do, and we'll get it all done in that period of time. So before Carol and Shelley came to present their items, I just wanted to give you an overview of those two schedule items, and I'd be just happy to answer any questions about schedule before we move on.
Don, go back to the schedule, please.
The budget one?
Yes, that one. So again, these dates are either time sensitive because of state law or because of when we're meeting. Was there any thought given to maybe combining two of them for the council if they chose to do that for a morning to evening? Or is that possible or not?
So just to clarify, the August 3rd and 4th, that's your all-day Thursday and Friday. Am I right about that, Dawn? It's a Thursday, Friday? Yeah. So August 3rd and 4th is all-day Thursday, all-day Friday on August 3rd and 4th. And then the rest of those dates are Tuesdays. So just to be clear with you, August the 1st is a hardwired date because we have business to do there that is outside of the budget process. That includes your three-year strategic plan presentation. And then 8th is hardwired based on the date that you have to pass a resolution for publication of public hearing on the tax rate and budget. That's a state law process, and you only have the 8th to do it. And then the 15th is a planning and zoning hearing that's already been posted in the newspaper, and that's a schedule that's based on the state law related to public hearings for Planning and Zoning Commission. And then August the 22nd, that is your date on your debt issuance, and kind of so on down the line here. I really don't have flexibility during this period on those Tuesdays.
Yeah. Well, so I guess my comment for the council is, I know that this is a very busy schedule for you. If there is a date that isn't going to work for you, if you'd let us know as soon as possible. But we do want your input, and we'll read it into the record if you're not able to attend one of those meetings. We don't want to not include anybody, and I know it's difficult. So review those with your personal schedules and your work schedules, and if there's anything that we need to be aware of, we let Mr. Sims know. Okay, has anybody got any questions, comments? All right, next item on the agenda is discuss human resources strategic plan. And Carol, again, I apologize for not getting you in. I apologize. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As Mike Sims stated, this is a continuum of the strategic plan workshop from June 29th. Time restraints prevented me from making that presentation, so I do appreciate you giving me that audience tonight. What you have before you would be, I move this down, okay, is the vision from the Human Resource Department on strategically planning for 3 years out and beyond. Today, in my presentation, I would like to give you an overview of how the Human Resource Department exists today. Today, we have 2 staff members and myself. We are responsible for 4 to 5 components, wage and benefits, with the key on benefits, risk management, and we also do liability. We do workers' comp, and we present quality applicants to our department directors and/or direct reports to be able to add quality candidates to the city of Terrell. Any questions on any of those? I will provide as I presented, I will provide the time frame on accomplishing the strategic plan. Hopefully, if you have any questions, you can interject. Again, this is just a proposal. Some will be speeded up depending on the urgency of the council's vision, but I think with the necessary budget items and the money involved, with the benefit side, planning it out over a 3-year period would allow adequate funding for each one of our components.
Okay, I'll just, so everybody knows, we'll do the same process that we did at our retreat, and go ahead and let you get through your presentation, and we'll take each one of the council members and see if you have any questions, okay?
Okay. The first component is to cultivate a culture that matches both the citizens' needs and the next generation of employees. As you obviously know, as you are public servants, we offer the service for our external and internal customers, and we have to be cognizant that there is a shelf life for those that are aged and tenured here, and the next generation needs to understand the public service that we offer, but also we have to understand that they're a different generation, and maybe what we're offering could be accomplished in a more enhanced way through technology. This world is quicker, it's faster, and so we have to make sure that we are cognizant of that nature, and then make sure that we are providing those services that will attract that next generation. The next component is, and that will be ongoing, because obviously generational applicants and candidates for employment will be ongoing.
We also need to improve how the city encourages and supports professional development. Right now, we have a process where we pay 100% of those internal employees who desire professional growth. That is I think one of the most beneficial benefits we can offer to pay for books, fees associated with that person's professional growth. We also internally offer what I call soft skill growth for employees as far as their interpersonal skills. So that combination ought to make us a formidable city of employees who would offer the service to the employees. That was implemented, if you remember, obviously Council Robertson, you wasn't on the council, but it was last fiscal year where we enhanced from a percentage of tuition payment to 100%. Also, we would like to create a standalone employee indirect pool charge in accounts to cover the tuition. Right now, we are paying that out of one department. Many departments, so we would like to centralize that and pay and keep up with the direct costs, which we are doing it within my department right now. So we will provide you a report on those employees who are taking advantage of that particular benefit. And 1.44 is just a continuation of 1.43. More importantly, the document that we have on the website, what we can expect of employees and what they can expect of us as an employer. We review that periodically to make sure that our policies and procedures are within the confines of state law and federal law. And then, of course, local ordinances. That is a guide that I'm particularly sensitive to because whenever there is an adversarial component, that is the document that's the first document that's pulled. How do you operate? What do you expect of your employee? And what do they expect of you? And if it's consistent, we usually are on the positive side. And so that would be an ongoing process because it's better to put many liens on a document as opposed to one lens. Again, we are holding a third-party review of our hiring process, advertisement and recruitment, because we are having a changeover in our field operations. So we're using the same process to get the bodies in because there are so many projects and work orders that must be addressed. So we are not having that document reviewed right now, but it will be implemented. Any questions? Good. So the next step would be, if you're looking at your screen, 1.47, 1.48, and 1.47 and 1.48 are all a part of the recruitment and that I just mentioned. The most important one is 1.49, the way that we pay employees, which is the most important component. I think if you ask an employee what's the most important thing, it would be their pay. So I've been doing some diligence, found out that our previous consultant who conducted our last overall survey of our competitors, she is now the HR director for the city of Frisco and she's not doing the actual survey component consulting. So I'm searching for a quality person or a firm that can look at our current compensation, make sure that we are paying our employees in a competitive rate. And the customer service training and the interaction with our customers, that's pending me finding the right consultant to bring in or the right facilitator to bring in. The same with 1.413, the leadership training. That's also pending. Currently, the HR department oversees a staff of 224 employees. That includes, and that number on seasonal varies depending on the number that is needed to operate our municipal pool. But right now it's 22 with some higher, so that number vacillates, but right now it's 224. Contained within that number is our civil service staff classifications of fire and police, which is governed under Chapter 143 of the Local Government Code, which is the old 1269M under the Vernon's annotated statute. So if anybody have insomnia and want to read it, it's there. It will put you to sleep, but that's where you can find how we govern ourselves. You co-sign that, Greg?
I will, most definitely, ma'am.
Again, as I said earlier in my preamble, we oversee, the HR department oversee actually compensation and benefits, risk management, safety and health protocols, training and development, and then employee relations, which is the hiring, submitting the quality applications to the employees. In that, we ensure that we are strategically planning, making sure that our services are in direct line with what the citizens are requiring of us. So my goal for fiscal year 24, 25, and 26, for a third-party review of our HR handbook, which we talked about, which is currently on the website for your reading. Our internal job descriptions to ensure that we are in compliance, again, with state, federal, and local laws, particularly looking at, this is a new generation. We may have some outdated language on attire, including tattoo and body piercings. That's going to be an issue that we need to address because the younger generation, that's what they have. It does not mean that they're any less adequate than any other people, but just trends and generations, they may have those type of issues. I mean, those type of body piercings and tattoos. So we really have to look at it to make sure that we are not overlooking or injecting our own prejudices against that type of attire. Again, we look at work hours and schedule. We offer, obviously, full-time is 30 hours or more. We are a 40-hour-a-week employer. Can we find quality people who are flexible, will work a different schedule to adhere to, again, compensation and benefits, but also the main objective is to offer that service to our employers. So we are a 24/7 operation, and there may be a need for employees to work varied shifts, and we could make sure we look at that because the younger generation are quicker and they're faster. They are smarter. They may not be wiser. That's for the older people to instill, but they're definitely smarter. So we have to make sure that we are in line with the younger generation, and that includes mentorships, training, taking a person under your wing, or what we call shadow wing, so that the younger generation would not be intimidated by some of the responsibilities, but they can inject their own thought process on how to better ourselves. Again, second goal is to look at our compensation, which is very important. That is an issue that I would like to bring forth for us planning for fiscal year 24-25, to make sure that, again, we are competitive in what we're offering as a local government. Obviously, there is always going to be that disparity between private sector and public sector, but I want to make sure that we are competitive and able to attract, retain quality candidates. And that's my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Holland. Real quick, on the wage and benefit study, you had mentioned that we were trying to get that done and find some comparison city. Is there a time frame that you think that would work for us? And the council will probably need to fund that study. Do we have a cost on what that might be?
Well, preliminarily, I am doing the actual backgrounds to make sure that the pricing and the consultants,
Right.
What actually the product that we are going to request, and then ask obviously for a fee from those people, from those consultants. Hopefully, I would like to get more than two. Okay. I would like to make sure that the number is where you would have options and you can pick and choose. So to answer your question specifically, I would like to kind of implement that in 25. Okay. Do all the background work and hard work now, because we are changing over to a new HR system that is going to take a lot of my time. Right. So I would like to move that to 25. Okay. So the mayor, and I'm sure the council appreciates, because it's coming on us to give you the resources and the tools to make you successful. So the quicker we know about it and we can start thinking about it, the better we are and staff is. So I support doing that 100%. Does anybody have any questions directed to Carol? Ms. Holland.
I got a question. Antiquated is the old study. What was the last update we had on that?
Actually, well, I'm sorry. A lot of times you just start talking and I don't hear the last part of your question. But not that I'm ready to go home or anything, but I do watch Law and Order.
Long day.
But no, to answer your question, that study was done in 2014, implemented in 2015, so it is 8 years old. There was a component that there is a formula and there's an algorithm that can be used to maintain, but we're larger than what some of the comparative cities that we used at that time. So it would just be advisable to not so much look at population, and I would have asked the council not to look at, when you're comparing cities, not to look really at the population, but look at like scenarios, how much, actually, this staff, we're pretty doggone good at what we do. And so we're making it work, but we need to be large. We need to be large in staff. So that's why I say you need to look at the actual full-time equivalent to other cities that may be larger in population, but that doesn't mean that we're not required to do that type of work because of where we're geographically located. We are not considered, even though we say we're East Texas, all of our studies, all of our requirements come from the metropolitan area. So we're really considered to be a part of the Dallas-Fort Worth statistical area. So when I present it, it may not be apples to apples. You may want to know why a city of 21,000 is looking at a city of 50,000. It's because of what we do and what our requirements are and how much we have to produce and to be in compliance with state law. Did that answer your question, Ms. Thomas?
Anyone else?
Ms. Holland, y'all are a small but mighty team in HR because y'all have a lot of areas in HR that y'all administer from, you said, from wages to liability, that includes compensation, to recruiting and hiring and even the end, right, termination. And this year, there is a large project for Loftus software implementation that's occurring. Is that a project that takes up a lot of time? Is that a very time-consuming project in addition to like the regular day-to-day responsibilities? Or is there support from I'm trying to recall if there's the project manager from the software that can assist with a lot of that? Just knowing with projects, sometimes there's a lot of like procedures you have to kind of turn over, and then they implement, and then there's training on the software. So I can only imagine that it's going to be very busy for y'all this year.
Yeah. So I'm gonna date myself. I know I look younger than I'm really old, but here's the thing: when I first began, we had 89 employees. So we ended up I had to type all of this data in with a typewriter. Some of the younger people may not know what that is. So I had to do that. And then there was a change to the Mountatran system, and it read what I'd encoded. So it was a little easier, but there were some glitches. So I had to go in and do build another formula and some algorithms. So then we transitioned to Harris. Harris was able to read over, and so I was just able to watch it and to make sure that it was doing what it was supposed to do. So that's what I'm hoping for, this Tyler technology, that all I need to do is periodically watch data move. And if it ought to be able to integrate and talk to each other. So if it doesn't talk, then I would have to go in and make some manual changes, but I'm hoping that it would just read.
Yeah, so
So
just,
that should slow down. That would not require a lot of my time. It's just a matter of periodically changing how it's going to read and making sure the platform is correct. And then if I have to go in and do an algorithm, I will.
so for just clarity on that, FY '23 was the year of getting finance up and running on the new Tyler technology software. And Shelley and that team will have that ready to go so that October 1st, we'll flip the switch from Harris to Tyler technology, and will be all new Tyler technology in the finance system. Carol will just then begin over the next few weeks and months to gear up for FY '24 to be a very, very substantial effort in her department, so that we go through FY '24 and change the entire HR system during FY '24 also to that same Tyler technology system. Because the sequencing was do the finance department first, then go run and do the HR department. So that's why Carol's noting to you her time commitment related to the Tyler technology thing. That's going to be a very high workload for her department during FY '24. And my comment to you is, it'll be a hard FY '24. We'll have a project manager working from True North and Tyler Technologies to help that happen. But it's still going to be a very heavy workload for Carol's team. And that's part of why she's advising, and I wholeheartedly agree with this. There are going to be a handful of things that we'd like to do that are overall 3-year goals that need to wait till we get Tyler incorporated into the HR system. Because I tell you, the number one thing that a lot of our employees want, particularly the young ones we're recruiting, yes, they want to make more money, but they also want an easier to interface with insurance program, an easier to interface with payroll system, an easier to interface system to log their vacation time and all sorts of things. So we need to get there. It's a major goal, and Carol will smile her way through it next year.
Yeah, and that's what I was really taking away from this presentation, and just, when you make such a switch from one infrastructure to another, and I want to be supportive of HR and those policies that help you attract, like updating some of those policies. You shared one with the twos, that the piercings, if there was time this coming year to review or compare policy to another city where something like that policy could come forth. Not a whole handbook. I hear that might be a bit more extensive. Might stretch out a bit this year, but if there were individual policies that there was time in between, I'd be very open to seeing those policies come forth to help support recruitment and retention of staff. That I think, I appreciate you notating the customer service and continuing to be a proponent of customer service in our staff, whether it's for existing or new staff members. And I'm always thinking of, what's that next step relate to customer service or trainings. We have so many trainings that we do. In general, when we join like a new employer, right? So some of that standardization in the future, once we are able to get this software implemented.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What I always look at is the potential for replacement. And the year 24, probably 38%, 40% of our workforce is eligible to retire. So my preparation is whenever to prepare and not be, and make sure I won't be caught off guard in making sure that we have staff to take over. So that's why I wanted to make sure that the younger generation is in tune with the current culture and the protocol of what we have. Just a side note, most cities in our area, again, we're small, but we're the leader because our handbook already addresses attire, body piercings. And again, it may need to be tweaked, but we have that language there. Some cities do not. They were basically caught off guard. We have also embedded in our handbook our processes for retention and social media, which is a big issue. We already have a product that may need to be tweaked, but it's not that we don't have anything, and that makes it easier. And that's the same with the changeover. The data I have. So it's going to be complex and very, very meticulous. However, we have the data that ought to just upload and read, and I should just be able to periodically check and make sure that it's running like it should.
I appreciate that.
Hmm?
Taking care of our employees are very important. Just the reason I asked that about the antiquation of the study before, is there anything we need to do, or what would your suggestion be, keeping our employees in mind when I think about retention and all that, and getting a new generation in here trained so they can transition? When I hear 40% or almost at retirement eligibility, that scares me. But basically, is there a suggestion you have for us as it relates to budget when we look at this? When we look at the studies we've had, even though it is older, with the numbers and algorithms that do whatever, you understand that more than I do.
Oh, I just make stuff
What
up.
do we need to be doing? I don't know if you asked. This is like a Marani question.
Go
What
ahead.
I'm trying to ask, but I don't know if I'm conveying what I'm trying to ask. What do we need to do as a council to make sure that we still keep that in mind as people live and grow and thrive?
Well, one thing I think the narrative ought to be, and I would like for the council to do, to continue to say that you are aware and you are cognizant that we are behind the market. And that because we need to do an actual all-out study, we're going to maintain what we have and do some adjustments that we can, but just be aware because of inflation, because of all of the other outside factors, external factors that are out there for employees, interest rates and inflation and all that thing. I think the narrative ought to be, that we are behind the market, but we are trying to catch up, but we can't without the science, without the data, to make sure that we're doing apples to apples.
All right, thank you.
I'm actually going to say a thank you to council associated with that, because I think tonight was an interesting study in, there's a lot of councils that maybe they wouldn't be that kind to that new set of employees we saw tonight. You got Jeremy, you got O'Meara, you got Carnell. That's good, man. That is a really good fleet of younger employees that can come forward, give presentations to council, study the issues in detail. I've got a lot of faith in our younger group, and part of it is just going to be allowing them to grow. And it's bad on me and it's bad on our department heads if you don't see some of those folks show up to city council and participate and start to take on leadership roles. So thank you to council, because you guys are part of welcoming them here.
One point too, I'd like to make, Carol was mentioning about the handbook. I've, as the city attorney, have consulted with Carol about the handbook on various issues in the past, and I can agree with what Carol said, that our handbook is probably as complete as any for a city really of any size, certainly a city of our size, and Carol has it together there, and I wanted you all to know that.
Thank you. Phil?
Just real quick, one of my biggest concerns, maybe my biggest concern, is our tremendous difficulty hiring in the public safety sector. Terrell FD recently carried out their hiring activities. I think they only had 2 qualified applicants in the end, and they ended up having no one they could hire because no one was qualified in the end. But our fire department is pretty dramatically understaffed. As I see it, this is 100% because they're underpaid. They're not competitively paid. Starting pay is too low. We have firefighters who live in East Texas, like in Wills Point or Canton, driving through Terrell to go work in Mesquite or Dallas. Because of that problem, our department's overworked, underpaid. They're making, say, 15, 18 runs in a 24-hour shift. And I don't think they're even going to be able to work safely with the amount of people they have on staff sometimes. The NFPA regulations for fire state that you have to have at least 4 on an engine at all times. Sometimes they're working with 3. It's not safe. So I'd like to see some kind of plans and goals put forth regarding how we can address those fire department and public safety staffing issues.
Sure. Partially, the reality is there aren't that many people because of whatever factors are interested in public safety at this particular time. In the geographical area, with the requirements that the police and fire have. And I don't know if you've looked at our current compensation rate, but it's very competitive. I would venture to say that we could have a dialogue on not really being underpaid. The city of Dallas, their firefighters, and I think you may know that, EMTs, it's between 60 and 80. We are between 70 and 85.
Is that within, that's not starting pay, that's incentive pay, correct?
No, that's we're heavy on the beginning, and then I think over time, you guys top out at a higher, well, when I say you guys, Dallas, top out at a higher level, but.
I thought it was, I saw the recent advert regarding the hire, and I believe it was in the 50s was the initial starting pay. Am I not correct?
You saw for those without the certifications.
Yes.
I think you're talking about fire police.
Entry-level starting pay for the fire department.
For fire,
It's
and I would have to
much lower
look.
than any surrounding state that I know of. That's why I think we're having some staffing. We can talk offline.
Yeah,
about
we
it if
can,
you'd
we
like to,
can,
but
because,
but
yeah,
we'll discuss it.
we'll talk it. Because our issue is we're requiring a more sophisticated candidate as a paramedic up front, and then we'll send you to fire school. So that recruitment is very specialized. And so those who are desiring to be firefighters that are not already paramedics, that's a difficult certification. It's almost, maybe, as you know, take a year and a half to obtain. So if we are going to recruit for a paramedic, we have to do what we call a lateral transfer. So though that's the salary I'm talking about, that's competitive, but the base salary is not, because we ask for a specialized certification, which is paramedic.
So yeah, I just would add that what the beauty of doing a 3-year strategic plan before we do the budget process is it tells staff what to bring back to you as part of the budget considerations. So we'll make sure that we bring you some data and a review of that topic at the budget retreat. Yeah.
Grady, you got something? You got anything? Grady, you got anything?
In regards to?
Yes.
No.
Okay, all right. Thank you, council. Thank you, Ms. Holland, for that presentation. Look forward to hearing from you. All right?
Thank you.
You bet. If there's no objection, the mayor would like to suspend the rules one more time. I have a special request from a council member to recognize somebody. Is there any objection? Hearing none, we're going to suspend the rules. Mr. Simpson, if you'd go forward.
Yes, Mayor. In regards to the proclamation that I read just at the opening of our council meeting, the lady by the name of Lily Marie Henderson Prince White, who was such a great lady here in Terrell, an international designer by all standards. Well, we have our great, I believe, our great grandchildren here. That's Clayton Redmond and Christy K. Moore. And Christy, I believe, is a owner of a funeral home in Midlothian, in Mansfield. Yes. So she's the great granddaughter of the 103-year-old Lily Marie White. So just wanted to take the time to recognize. I'm sorry you guys wasn't here for the reading of the proclamation, but Christy, I did give you the proclamation when we was at the funeral. So just want to take the time to recognize both of you before council and let you know that the city of Terrell is proud of your great-grandmother and what she's done and her accomplishments, and we know you will go on and do generations work as well.
So do they have a copy of that proclamation, or who has that?
I have the copy right
No,
here.
I meant one.
The original?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they have the original.
All right, so at this time, we're going to adjourn for just a minute. Grady, if you want to take a photo with them?
Yes.
We're going to take a little break, and we'll recess for just 5 minutes. And I apologize for not being able to get to you at our retreat, but
That is okay.
floor is yours.
That is okay.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council. Tonight, I'm going to be discussing the Finance Department Strategic Plan for fiscal years 24, 25, and 26.
Speak into the mic, because I think they're having difficulty hearing you online.
Me?
Yes. Everyone. Everyone.
How's that? Is that better?
Better.
So our first slide will consist of the Finance Department's previous goals and our progress as of today. So some of these initiatives or these previous goals were established by my predecessor. However, we as a department have continued to work on them and to try to advance them forward. So with that being said, our first goal was to pursue a diverse tax base and revenue options in every fund. That continues to be an ongoing goal for the department as it will traverse various fiscal years. Increase the general fund's balance to 2 months of operating expenditures. That too is also an ongoing endeavor. Build a sustainable financial structure that maintains the city's capital assets and provide for a quality workforce. That is also ongoing. Update the cell phone procurement system. That has been completed. And what that entailed was we worked in collaboration with the HR department to establish a cell phone stipend. Upgrade financial software to include new features to help streamline many of our processes and eliminate the need for paper documents. That too is ongoing. We're striving to improve training and skill sets and increase the number of staff in the finance department. Ongoing. Achieve the budget presentation award from the Government Finance Officers Association. Also ongoing. Complete the software implementation for credit card reconciliations. That project is completed. Implement a pilot project for the inventory management system. That is ongoing. And also update the financial policy and improve financial reporting. That also is an ongoing effort as the financial policy we try to update as processes change. So we did have some notable accomplishments and some of the progressive tasks that are occurring right now in the summer of 23. So for our fiscal year 22 accomplishments included the implementation of the B of A Works digital platform to manage the city's purchasing card program. We also rolled out an introduction of what we call our Finance University. For fiscal year 23, the implementation of the phone stipend incentive in collaboration with Human Resources. For the summer of 23, our progressive tasks currently include our finance team's participation to complete the Tyler configuration for an October 1st, 2023 go live. This major milestone will transform the finance department from a 1990s model to a modern IT environment. So with that being said, the finance department isn't just about numbers. We are the front line of trust and accountability as to the public, as we do have a fiduciary responsibility to the residents of this community. The finance department, our processes, they are an all-day, everyday process. As we in the finance department, we support every city function. And as you know, as the city is growing and our needs are changing, the more complex the city, the greater the demands for the finance department. So currently, at the start of fiscal year 23, this is what our our hierarchy looked like. At the time, my predecessor was in the director role. I was a finance manager. We have senior accountant position, a finance operations analyst position, and an accounting technician. So at that time, of the 5 positions that are funded, when we started the year, 3 were filled. So we were operating at 60%. Today, as I stand here, my predecessor has moved on. I am now the finance director. We have 5 current, we have a staff of 5 that is comprised of a mix of contract and full-time employees. We also utilize 2 additional contractors for our internal audit functions. Our near-term goal in our finance department is to really upgrade our finance department, our personnel's levels of knowledge, really. So as you can see, we're trying to transition, or we're transitioning more to more professional roles within the finance department, as indicated with the 2 senior accountant roles, an accounting technician, and a financial analyst. Strategically, by the end of fiscal year 24, and as we move into fiscal year 25 and 26, we will see a need to expand the finance department staff to 8 or more individuals. As number 1, we're looking to relocate the utility billing from utilities into the finance department. We are going to study the possibility of centralizing purchasing, or the addition of a centralized purchasing unit. And also, we are going to look to consider having a full-time in-house internal auditor. Our finance department's initiatives and my proposal for fiscal year 24, 25, and 26 are as follows. We are looking to implement budget performance measures. We would also strive to publish budget and financial documents to the city's webpage sooner rather than later. Integrate the utility billing office into finance. I'm looking to improve the annual audit completion by approximately 90 days to start. We're going to develop monthly key performance indicators, which we will be able to do with the transition to Tyler. Continue to pursue a diverse tax base and revenue options in each fund. Study centralizing accounts payable, as a decision was made to decentralize that, and each department processes their own AP. We're also moving to establish a standardized clearinghouse for all grant processing for the city. We're going to study a centralized purchasing/procurement function. Establish and improve our existing processes as we move to better train our staff on those processes. Continue to monitor and improve fund balances and investments, and continue to adhere to rating agency guidance. And that completes my proposal for the finance department's 3-year strategic plan. Any questions?
All right. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Wallace. So, a couple of things. The internal auditor, that's basically for internal accountability for us?
So the way that we utilize the internal auditor, Mr. Mayor, is that as we are working on our existing processes, or as we do our day-to-day work, we usually have the internal auditor kind of review that work as we're moving through the fiscal year to get ready to do the city's side of the work for its annual audit, which is called a PBC, which means prepared by client. And so rather than waiting to get toward the end of the fiscal year to start that work, an internal auditor should be reviewing on a timeline throughout the fiscal year to make sure we're consistent with what the audit firm that works for us needs to prepare our audit in a more timely and accurate way.
Yeah, so I guess a follow-up question would be, Was there anything that you've uncovered that would cause you to move in this direction? In other words, for somebody who's looking outside and maybe saying, hey, you know what, they need an internal auditor because there was something, right? And
No,
I
not
just
at all.
I wanna
Nothing
make sure that the
inappropriate.
council- Yeah,
Nothing
exactly.
inappropriate
That's what I
at
want to
all.
make sure.
Just to clarify, Mayor, we currently have a internal auditor function performed by a contractor.
Yes.
And we've had that same person doing that contract work for many, many years. So the discussion isn't do it for the first time. The discussion is enhance how we do it and improve how we do it because Regional's grown more complicated, and we want to make sure that we have a reliable process and a reliable structure for that.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear why we were moving in that direction. Now, the other thing would be, I've discussed with Mr. Sims and with others about the council, the mayor and the council, and how we handle our travel costs and how we do reimbursement. We were supposed to receive some feedback on how the finance department wanted to handle that. I just want you to know that if we can move that along and make sure that the process is clean and everybody understands the paperwork associated with that, because I think it's lacking a little bit, and we need to make sure that we're transparent as we move forward. Not to say you're doing a bad job. We just need to work on that, right? So we're going to start with District 2. Grady Simpson.
Yes. Thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
Doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
I have a question in regards to the accounting technician. Are there two accounting technicians? Just only one, but how many do you need?
Our department has one we have one accounting technician funded. So right now, we're going to transition into fiscal year 24 with our existing funded 5 positions, one of which is an accounting technician. I currently have someone that has transitioned over from another department, but she's in the administrative technician role. She's currently taking classes, and as her work develops and she gains a better understanding, we will probably look to transition her into the accounting technician role. However, we're always looking and vetting candidates to fill roles on our team.
So how you've improvised without having that additional accounting technician? Is kind of more of the work going on over to the accounting technician that you presently have?
Well, we don't have an accounting technician. I do have a contractor. So right now, we are, the individual that's transitioned in, we're currently training her, or she's being trained under our AP accountant to get her better acclimated to the pace in our department and to just the sheer volume of work that we have. You know, we service, like I said, all the departments. Anyone who's processing payments, those batches are coming through finance.
And how soon you think they would be prepared for the job? They need a year's time, or?
Honestly, it depends on the candidate.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I share with the team is that I don't necessarily expect them to maybe work the hours that I do, but what I am looking for is commitment. I'm willing to provide, you know, the tools to assist that individual in being successful, but they have to come with the motivation and the commitment.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
I think that agenda item page 52 might be a good way to kind of talk about this for a second. Remember, this is where 2 different council policies match up and go together, okay? If so, on page 52, there you go. Remember that you have a 100% tuition reimbursement program, right? So if we've got a staff person who is hired for a less technical job and wants to take some classes, wants to make some improvements, and then can slide into a more complicated job title, the accounting technician one, just as a for example, that helps us move forward, right? And it's taking and developing staff internally. We love doing that whenever we can, and we want to give everybody the opportunity to do that when we can. when Shelley says near-term goal, it's our hope that we could get contractors to transition to work full-time for us and make sure that as we're entering FY24, we get to this team shown here on this page as soon as we can. We've got good people now, but we're just going to keep polishing that and improving as much as we can so that we can we think we'll really run with Tyler Technology and a team that looks like this chart. That's the combo pack Shelley needs for success in early FY24.
Well, I agree that to have somebody with heart willing to put in the work, I'm all for that, rather than to bring someone from outside and you don't know where they are, you know what you got, so.
I agree.
Yeah.
District 3.
Hey, Shelley. Always appreciate your 21st century and drive to take the finance department to the next level. And really, I thought that's all I was going to say today, and had no questions. But I am a little curious about the budget performance measures. If you could give me, one, two examples, because I think when I think about budget performance measures, made me think of like, other communities, like, for example, I know this is a county, but, or another community that may have performance indicators for their departments, and they look at workload, they look at efficiency, effectiveness. If it's a dog pound, the animal services, they may look at, how many animals were retrieved or how many calls did you receive. And so that's what I think about when I think about performance indicators and how they're showcased in budget or presentations. Is that what you're referring to?
Absolutely. So with the transition to Tyler, each director will have their budget on what they call a tile. So when they log in, they're not seeing, it's going to be up to them, and we'll have those conversations. But they would see their individual department's budget and how that budget is performing in real time when they log in. So they're not going to have to run any reports or receive any distributions. It will be right there in basically a visual dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be important to collaborate with each director to understand what activities that we can measure and define as a key performance indicator for that department.
Okay. And I guess we're a smaller city, and I think some of what I've seen in the past has been with like a county level, maybe at a large city, but then they use those performance indicators to rate like the justification for keeping a program or even adding additional staff by being able to showcase those. So that's what my mind initially went to.
And you're right, that's where we want to go. My comment is we're going to move slowly into that area because we're only going to start FY24 with the ability to start test driving some performance measures at the staff level with some department heads. It'd be my hope that by the time we get to creating the FY25 budget, we'd have enough confidence in our skill sets with that new technology to say, yeah, now we're going to propose some. We'll talk to staff, talk to council about, are there a handful, could we have an FY25 where we test drive a set of performance-driven topics? And I don't want to speculate on what that would be necessarily right now, but that's part of the reason we made the transition to Tyler Technology, is that we want to be able to piece our budget together and start growing in that direction. That's the same vision I've been speaking about for a long time. We've got to be, technologically speaking, having the framework we can use to become a city that has all the challenges we know we're going to have in the next 5 to 10 years. We know the challenges are coming. We can see them coming through the door in the municipal development department every day. We have to be big enough and sophisticated enough to do that, and that's where you start making that transition to performance measures.
You're welcome.
District 4.
I was thinking the same thing in line of Mike, where we were talking about transitioning some of these contractors into full-time. I recognize one name. She's fairly new. How long has the senior accountant been contracted? You know how long they've been doing that, in that role?
So the senior accountant that you're talking about is Mr. Mohammed Nasser. He joined, he came aboard with us in February with no governmental experience. And in looking at his background, he has all the pertinent soft skills. And so he's someone who is open to learning, asks a lot of questions about the process, but his baseline foundational technical skills in terms of debits and credits, accounting, he is a revenue subject matter expert. He has a thorough understanding of concepts and theories. And so in looking at him or assessing him, he can learn the government part, right? So I don't want to exclude individuals because they don't have any governmental experience. I think that you can glean from their profiles what their soft skills are and can those soft skills be transitioned into our space.
And then I saw you have a vacancy. Is that account technician is cut off?
Our accounting technician is an open position, as I indicated. So we had a transfer in who's transferred into the accounting or the administrative technician role. And so that is our current vacancy. We also have another admin individual on a contractor basis. And then we have our AP senior accountant / manager, Juan, that came aboard with the city in, I believe, April of 21. And then he converted into a full-time employee a few months later.
What is your challenges with this vacancy in this account technician role? Is it just getting applicants that's qualified, or just, what do you think?
Well, part of it has been kind of priorities. You know, Mr. Sims made it very clear that that he wanted that to be one of my top priorities is to staff our department adequately. But right now, the challenge for me to doing so has been to try to wrap up the city's annual audit, have the budget in process, also the Tyler project. So right now, our team, just as a matter of transparency, we spend right now every Monday and every Friday on an 8-hour call in learning Tyler. We are also doing the configuration work of Tyler. And so it's been a little difficult to really vet individuals. So the fact that someone was looking to probably transition into our group is very helpful, because the culture part and just the understanding of how the city operates is facilitated. So it is on our list, to seek additional candidates, whether it's through a contractor and not trying to persuade them to convert, but showing them that we have a really good culture. We're building a really good culture in our department, and again, motivation and commitment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
District 5?
A couple questions. Thanks for your presentation. I appreciate it. One of the line items involved, let me go back to it again so I get the wording correct. Increase the general fund balance to 2 months of operating procedures. What is the current cushion? Why is it? Yeah, go ahead. Where are we at currently?
Right now, that calculation right now I'm not real comfortable with until we finish this year's audit.
Okay.
To have a better understanding and more confidence in the fund balance amounts, because they're crucial in this calculation. And so I didn't want to present to the council or the mayor numbers that I couldn't stand on.
Okay.
And so I know that we will be calculating that once we get once the annual audit is finalized.
Yeah, and just as a point of reference, our FY21 general fund balance was not a 60-day fund balance. It was a 38-day balance of cash and investments at the end of FY21. I think Shelley's right to let's let her unveil that when she unveils her FY22 audit, which she's about to do. And then I would just say, historically speaking, if you were to go back several years, there was really just more the philosophy on council, and you know, that we would have years where we ran up a fund balance a little bit, and then said, okay, we're going to spend that down to nothingness because we want to accomplish some goal out in the world, right? And I would say that it was my observation when I became interim city manager that we just couldn't do that anymore. We were becoming too large, too complicated, too robust of an organization to say, hey, let's save for a couple of years, spend it down to nothing, and that's not healthy. We need to be at 60. We need to always be at 60. And if you generate a little bit above 60, that's when you bring it forward and say, hey, we have a little extra fund balance here. Do we want to go ahead and spend that so we get back down to 60? And it just, it was just a change in philosophy that dates back right around to that time where we made the transition between mayor previous to Mayor Cremona and city manager previous to me. And I think we're on a good path, and I think that it's really what our rating agencies want to see for us. So we've got a 120-day fund balance goal in the utility fund, which has to do with some of the best practices in the utility fund, and then a 60-day, and it was really this council that adopted those numbers a couple of years ago when we changed our finance policy to match those numbers.
One additional question, similar to what the mayor was asking regarding auditing. You know, I see auditing as an aspect of maintaining accountability to the public. How often or what frequency are these audits conducted? And like, how often are we getting these third-party audits of our expenditure in the general fund, those kinds of things?
It's
Are they
annual.
accessible?
It's annual.
And just an annual audit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You mentioned earlier, I thought there was sort of an ongoing audit process that was taking place all the time, or?
So normally, that's what your internal auditor, that's what an internal auditor will do.
Okay.
And so, as Mr. Sims had alluded to, the consultant that the city has been partnered with, I recently found out for 38 years.
Oh, wow.
And has kind of seen the city become more and more complex in the way it has to account for the different activities within the city. So what that requires, because you want someone always looking to make sure that your cash is balanced between your system of record at your city and your bank accounts.
Sure.
Right? You also want to make sure that you're properly accounting for your capital assets, that they're documented. So, and inventories are performed so that we can value those. All of those items contribute to our fund balance numbers, and we need that fund balance number to calculate the months of operating expenditures. So one begets the other.
Okay. So one of your goals would be to have a full-time auditor on staff that's kind of managing those things in real time?
Ultimately, yes. What I want to do.
It's not of immediate need, though?
What I would prefer to do in the near term is I do like the utilization of someone to parachute in initially. It'll keep the costs down. They're cheaper than what the city currently pays for the level of consultancy that we've been paying for. And we can probably get them to come in like 4 hours a month or 8 hours a month and still be within the allotment of resources for that activity.
Okay.
And I think for all of us, you know, having numbers in real time has been a big goal of mine and the council's members that have been here with us. So I'm looking forward to that, and then that'll help you with your auditing as well, because you got current numbers, and so looking forward. You're doing a great job, Shelley. Thank you for
sir.
your hard work. Is anybody else?
I had a question.
Yes.
You talked about Finance University.
Yes.
What is that? Is that something you guys do?
So what we did was we noticed that some of the way that some of our coworkers or our employees were learning was from, you know, some the person that was still there after the person they replaced left. And so we were kind of losing, we try to operate, well, our goal is to always operate within the city's financial policy. And so we can't be the only one that's reading it, right? So what we did was, as we implemented like the B of A Works platform to manage the city's credit cards, well, we had to get everybody trained. So we thought, okay, so we could start looking at the city's various processes and start setting up like classes for, anyone. We're not going to force you to come, but if you want to come and learn, well, we did force them to come for the credit cards, but if you want to learn, because, we were observing that departments had kind of different interpretations of how to do certain things within, the confines or the guidelines of the financial policy. So we're trying to roll out something that we could achieve standardization in how we do in our processes across the city.
No, and again, it's making our organization better. These conversations I enjoy listening to because I know we're moving in the right direction. We've needed to do this for some time, so kudos to you and your department.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next on the agenda is it 9.4? Discuss monthly finance report. Again, this is Shelley. So, you need a glass of water before you get going?
So these are the financial reporting for May 31st, 2023. I'm not going to go in as detailed as I normally do. I think it's a little bit long-winded, but there's just some things I want to point out on the slides, because I think at a first glance, like when you look at the current month, say we're looking at the general fund for for the period ending May 31st, 2023. And so we're looking at an $808,000 deficit for the month. However, what I want you to focus on for this time of the year, we're 70% through the year or so. If you look at our year-to-date actual variance, we're actually operating at a positive rate. So that takes into account some of the highs and lows of when we're receiving revenues versus when we're, paying out on our expenditures. But overall, it looks really good, and it is above what we were doing a year ago.
Yeah. So I want to just note a couple of things that have been heard recently that might not jump out at you unless you just stare deeply at this thing. City sales tax have actually been down for the last 2 months. So that's going to be your June report and your July report. So as you see Shelley bring this forward in following months, you're going to see, oh, okay, well, there was a June drop in sales tax and there was a July drop in sales tax, and those were in the Terrell Tribune. That's all public information that you can get off of the comptroller's website. What we see kind of behind the scenes is that you have to remember that retail sales tax includes some stuff in it that you don't normally think of. So the large businesses in our industrial park that make sales for construction-related reasons, they often are sales tax-paying customers. So you might think of Cassidy Jones or Madix or Nucor, those types of businesses. If they don't have large industrial orders where there are sales tax being paid, then we would see a dip in those sales taxes. So we know behind the scenes that some of our retail businesses are still blowing and going and doing great, but it's the industrial type sales taxes that are not doing as well, or at least not for the last couple of months. And I think you can connect that to the interest rate environment. You saw the presentation from Judge Mike Smith on municipal court. We're going to miss the budget estimate for municipal court this year because that's just the fact of life, as you heard in the judge's presentation. Housing administration, we're going to be light in getting to our housing administration goal this year, and that has to do with the flow of vouchers and how those rotate through. So I just want to highlight, while it is a good overall report, there are a couple little issues that we're watching there and that we're going to be attentive to as we move forward over the next couple of months. So I just want to interject that. Shelley, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. This is just, of course, a graphic representation of our budgeted revenues and the general fund breakdown of those revenues below it. This is our property tax collections graph. And again, I know in a previous session, I had mentioned that our budgeted, which is the red, is basically straight line throughout the year. So it kind of looks like it's like dipping up and down when in fact, between the orange and the yellow, which is current year, orange and the blue and the green is current year and prior year. You can see those comparisons, but it looks like it's like we're always like way above budget. And so as I had indicated before, we're going to look to make those a little more relevant for the periods that we have to show the seasonality in the property tax collections. Because I think this looks, but okay. So here's our water and sewer utility fund. We had a good month per the numbers. We are consistent, as you can see, in our revenue and in our expenditures. And our year-to-date numbers look really well. Our airport fund, same holds true here. We're slightly undercollected, and there is, as we're getting closer to the end of the year, the fiscal year, we'll look to start digging in to see some of the bigger variances, what's happening as we are into the fourth quarter. And so we'll start to really drill down into those. But on a go-forward basis, as we move into Tyler, we'd see those much, much sooner than, we see them as we bring them before you, these variances. Our tourism fund, as you know, consists of our hotel occupancy taxes. And so in researching this, because I looked at it and I said, normally, even though the revenue is consistent with the expenditures, what I noticed when I looked at the transactions in detail were that as sometimes we receive checks early and we'll go ahead, we don't hold checks. We deposit everything when we get it. We're at the bank every week. And so sometimes if the check comes early, we won't hold it. It could be for the next month. And so we will go ahead and record that then. So then sometimes when you get to the next month, that revenue was already collected. So it'll make it seem like we're under collected in the revenue when we've we've already deposited a check. The utility capital reserve, it's kind of business as usual. Again, like I'm looking at a private sector contribution that I would like to drill down further to see what's kind of holding that up. But we are consistent in our capital reserve transfers into that fund. And the disparity between the revenues and the expenditures at this point in time is really not material. One last thing. On the CDBG grant administration line, that shows a credit in the expenditure, which is really a good thing, of 33. And basically what that entailed was that there were some grant administrator expenditures that really belonged to a different fund. And so Mike McKeska wanted his money back. So that $33,000 credit is what you see there. Our vehicle and equipment replacement fund, again, our revenues and expenditures are trending very closely, and that's really a good thing. Our sale of assets, which are really some of our assets that have already gone past their useful lives, and we send them to auction. We've done really well compared to what was budgeted. We've doubled what we thought we were going to do and collect in terms of selling salvage goods or selling old assets. And again, our revenues and expenditures, are trending very closely. Our stormwater utility fund, same thing. Transfers are coming in as scheduled. When I look and I see our expenditures in our transfers area, that's a big help because we know that the revenue that's offsetting those expenditures or the transfers coming in are happening the way they should. And so we have also, again, projects that we haven't yet started that have been funded and may eventually transition and carry over into may carry over into the next fiscal year. Our IT technology fund, or our IT department, again, the transfers, we look slightly under collected. I will be doing research into the UCR line item, as it is kind of skewing our year-to-date budget for that in the revenue section. And their expenditures, again, I mentioned in a previous session that at 92% of budget, some of those are just 1 year annual payments. Our parkland dedication, same thing here. They're trending within 10% of each other, but we also have some improvements that have not yet initiated. So that's really what's really driving down such a decrease in our expenditures. So it's not looking too bad based on that. Our Paddock financials, again, we have projects that have not yet started, which is keeping that expenditure, total expenditures well below budget. We are, our sales tax is really the main driver of the revenues in that fund. And so at 65% of budget, when we're, around 75% of the year done, it's not bad at all. And that'll complete my presentation to you for the May financials. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so is there, do you see anything that should be of concern to the council as it relates to the city's finances?
I do not at this time. But again, there are some line items that I want to research further, and definitely will discuss any findings that I have immediately with Mr. Sims. But no, right now there are no cautions.
Right. And I think the caution for the council would be is as we transition from the old system to the new system, and from our old finance director to you, the numbers are coming in, and I'm pleased with how you're presenting them. And I would just caution, sometimes you see a report, and because it's in real time, it's a little bit alarming. But really, if you look at the big picture, we're online for our budget.
Exactly.
Right. So does anybody have any questions let's start down here. Phil, you got anything?
You mentioned that there's some line items you need to research further. Can you elucidate those? Which line items might have?
So, for instance, when I, on that UCR line, I think it was in the IT budget. One moment. Let me go back to that. Yeah, right here. In the IT budget, if you look, there's a transfer in UCR 028. So what that references is in the budget book. There's a section that lays out what departments, what transfers are coming in and what transfers are going out. And so the fact that there's been nothing recorded in the year to date leads, that's cause for investigation on my part. So I'll run a detailed transaction history to find out if that was just an oversight and maybe it shouldn't have been in there at all, or the transfer wasn't set up, but I don't think that's it, because we would have saw it sooner. So I've been watching it, and so I need to drill down further into that just to see, if
I'll give you an
truly relevant.
example on page 62 also, and it's one that Shelley went by here in her presentation, so it's the same thing she brought up, where it says private sector contribution 100,000, and then down at the bottom in the expenditures it says Champion Drive Utility Project. That's the partnership with the RV park that is down in the corner of Sage Hill and American Way at I-20, right? So that's that existing RV park down there. And that's the item we saw recently at council, where we went to bid. We established the dollar amount associated with that project. We've got a contract in place. And so whenever the right moment in the construction process hits, They make a payment to us, and then we fulfill that full $300,000, $350,000 project. So the group engineers sitting over here in the corner, they're all thinking to themselves, yeah, well, we're going to have those exact numbers soon, and we'll know exactly what that is soon, and then we'll fill all that blank in. And whether or not we actually book that full $100,000 payment in FY '23, or if that trickles over to FY '24, and same thing with the full construction cost, I'm going to be shocked if anybody tells me we can actually incur 100% of those Champion Drive utility project costs in FY '23, because I'm running out of FY '23 to build the project. So those would be things that, you know, Shelley would check in and finance would say, okay, engineering, how are we doing on this? What's the status? Oh, okay, great, I got it. It may not hit this FY, and we'll just keep watching it. And frankly, again, I keep extolling the virtues of Tyler Technology here. Tyler Technology is going to make it easier to have multi-year projects where we run a project between FY '23, FY '24, FY '26. Be much easier for us to keep track of that sort of thing. As it is, we kind of have to manually watch some of that stuff.
Okay.
Does that help?
District 4?
That's good. That's what I have.
Anybody else? Anyone else? Nope. Shelley, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank
Next
you.
item on the agenda is 9.5, discuss ordinance number 2992, amending Chapter 8, offenses and nuances by adding Section 22, graffiti. This is Raylan Smith.
Mayor, City Council, what you have before you is a draft ordinance that I've been working with legal with for quite some time now. We think we've got a good product here for you. What we're trying to do is put some policies and procedures in place to handle the graffiti that happens on privately owned buildings. So these may be some of our downtown buildings, these may even be some of our commercial buildings that are around town. Generally in the past, it's been a lot of one-on-one contact. Do we send letters to the owner? Do you handle it kind of like a code nuisance? So in doing some research, I think one of the main cities I ended up making recommendations from was Waco. And so the way it's kind of laid out is you can get written consent from a property owner that would allow the city to go and remedy graffiti within a building. And so whether that is a right of entry agreement that you have for that property or simply a letter from the property owner, then what that does is it excludes us from having to go through the process of notifying you, giving you 10 days to abate it, et cetera, but that this would be a service that the city could offer our property owners so that we can keep an eye on the frequent flyers around town.
How many locations would you say are frequent flyers?
We get hit a lot downtown. We keep a really close eye on our murals. Obviously, on the public side, you know, we're constantly watching the bridges and stuff like that, and that's been without question. But when we do have graffiti that comes up on our buildings, especially on the mural side, we want to make sure that we're able to go in there and fix it in a timely manner so that internal process is that I do take a picture, submit it to the police department so that it can be documented, so that maybe they can keep track of tagging that's happening. But once we get the okay from the police department that it's been registered, then we can immediately go in and remove it off the property.
Are these gang-related?
Some of them are. Some of them you can tell they're just playing around on the buildings. You know, I don't know enough about gangs to.
Is this legal? What's the penalty if they're caught?
There is a penalty. I believe it has a fine up to $500.
We need to make that more. We need to make that more.
We can do that.
We need to make this very tough. We need to make sure that they understand it's not tolerated. We don't need that in this community, and we make an example of somebody, let's make an example of them and get it stopped.
There will be a separate ordinance that deals with the offense for that. But there is a section within our city code that does claim graffiti as an offense, but it never really addressed how we can have it removed, rather than it being on the property owner.
We had a penalty on it, but like Raylan said, there was just no corrective measures, I guess is the way to put it.
I don't think the penalty should be with the property owner because.
Right.
No,
No,
it's not.
if we can find who's done it, absolutely.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Raylan?
Real quick one. I was reading this, under the, I think it's D2, it says the property owner must refuse the city's offer to remove the graffiti, and that the refusal must be in writing, but also that failure to submit a refusal to have the city clean it would also be considered a refusal. And that if the owner doesn't abate the graffiti after refusing, the city can prosecute and fine them, even place a lien on the property.
Right, so the initial contact with the property owner is going to be to explain that we do have something in place, that if we get your written permission, if you wanted to sign this right of access, we can maintain that on file and be able to abate any graffiti on your property. Yes.
Okay.
If we do find a property and we explain to the owner the process, they can refuse to let us paint or try to remove the graffiti. And so what that's saying is, even if you refuse for the city to do it, that means you're still responsible for having it abated. And so then that would fall under the process of allowing them a number of days, and that would turn into more of a code violation.
Gotcha. You know, I don't know about the legality surrounding this, but perhaps like the non-response from the building owner should then default to just the city going and cleaning it. Why are we making the non-response from the owner be seen as a refusal, and they get penalized because they didn't get the mail, they didn't see the letter that came in, they tossed it aside and didn't realize it was, then suddenly they're getting fined for something that, you know.
The goal is that it would definitely be more than just a letter. It's going to be a knock on the door. It's going to be a telephone call. What we really hope is that we have good communication with our property owners, and it not have to go to the legality of notifying you through letter with no response. Someone would have to literally say, no, I do not want the city responsible for graffiti on the building.
We've had good response with all of our code type things from, I think if you would look at, talk to code enforcement, you'd find that they're getting an overwhelmingly positive feedback and getting voluntary compliance with most all the things that we do. And graffiti being no exception. I think it's, we have responsible property owners here who they don't want this any more than we do, and usually if it's brought to their attention, they're going to remedy it themselves in most cases.
And definitely appreciate the fact that we're taking the burden and the expense from them.
For sure. Okay.
Anyone else? Oh, okay.
If the concern is, will it just only be a letter, could we not add a telephone call? My suggestion would be to, share with staff that you would want that language added, or make the motion when the item comes forth with the addition of that language, as an option.
What would be the issue with just going and cleaning it instead of seeing the non-response as a refusal?
If we did power washing and we used a solution that ruined the paint.
Damage the building or?
Damage to the building, at that point, then we're liable.
Okay.
Yeah, so we
Makes
just
sense.
have to make sure we're covered.
Okay.
Mayor Ronnie, did you have anything? Does anybody have any questions?
I'd just like to say, vandalism, it just opens the door for other criminal activity. And I think this is something that the city can work with our business owners on. And it's just going to be great for our city. Where we're going in the future and what we're trying to do, we just got to establish these ordinances and policies now.
Right.
We got to lay the foundation, so love it.
Raise your expectations. I like it.
Totally agree.
Anyone else? All right, so what I'm hearing is if we could add some language to include and/or phone calls or and/or text. I don't know how legal can work that out, but
We'll
other
cover
than
all
just
forms of
writing,
communication.
yes, something that would be inclusive of all
This is
forms.
great. Absolutely. This is why we workshop stuff. We get some input. The next time you see it, we'll try to incorporate the various comments here, and you'll have another crack at it when we have it on your item for approval.
Great.
Absolutely.
Next item on the agenda is 9.6, discuss ordinance number 2993, amending Chapter 5, Business Regulations, Section 5-16, Special Events, Paragraph 4, Approval of Plans, Subparagraph E3, Food and Beverage Service. Again, this is Raylan Smith.
This one is really easy. This takes you back to the ordinance that does the special event application, and all this is doing is just simply adding the caveat that they now must meet the food truck ordinance as it's stated in the zoning ordinance, which is on your consent agenda. So it just references that section.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on it? Nope. All right, thank you. Next
thank
item
you.
on the agenda is 9.8, discuss amendment for Eastmore Water Main Project. This is going to be Jeremy again. Man, we should have had you back to back. You could have gone home. Huh? I didn't do the agenda.
We'll consider that next time.
Did we do
Did I miss
9-7?
one?
I believe we didn't do 9-7, Mayor.
9-7?
9-7
did?
was the bit.
Sorry, Raylan, you need to
Let
come
me-
back.
Let me,
Jeremy, you're gonna have to.
I'll take
what-
that one.
Hey, I'm sorry.
I'll take it right quick.
9.7 is gonna be Greg.
Yes. What we've done here, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I did? Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
this is, I'll read it briefly. It's ordinance number 2994, repealing Chapter 4, Business Regulations, Section 4-19, Neighborhood Integrity Code, and replacing it with a new Section 419, Adoption of the International Property Maintenance Code. We've been working off that International Property Maintenance Code for quite some time. It has never actually been incorporated in this manner into our ordinances. So what we've done, we had a section of a Neighborhood Integrity Code, which incorporated parts of the International Property Maintenance Code, but rather than have that, I felt it best that we just take out the Neighborhood Integrity Code and replace it with a formal adoption by the council of the International Property Maintenance Code. That way it would be a part of our ordinances so that if there's a violation that occurs of the International Property Maintenance Code, it's been incorporated into our ordinances, and that's what we'd be doing here.
Great. No, I know, I don't know about the rest of the council, but I do get, from time to time, phone calls from neighbors with issues, so this will address that. All right. Anybody got any questions on it? Nope. All right, now, we will go to 9.8. This is Jeremy. Go ahead,
Pretty
Jeremy.
simple.
This is discuss amendment for Eastmore Water Main Project. Go ahead.
Yes, so the amendment that is brought forth is for the McManus and Johnson Consultant Engineering Group for the Eastmore Waterline Service Project, which is a project that consists of replacing the existing 10-inch that runs from North Blanche to Birch Street. That water line right now is actually existing underneath the left lane of Eastmore, where it will now be offset out of that travelway. So the amendment will pretty much cover the additional services needed to pretty much take it to 100% completion.
So this would be a $35,000?
Yes, sir. Amendment, which will bring the total to $209,700.
Okay.
$209,700.
And this will come back Tuesday, right? For the council. Does anybody have any questions on this? No? All right, thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. It's ordinance number 2986, which is 10.1, and ordinance number 2987, 10.2. Does anyone wish to pull either one of those off and consider them separately? If not, we may consider all these items as routine and may enact one motion and one vote for both. Hearing none, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion on the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion from Phil Robinson, District 5, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve both ordinances number 2986 and 2987, to approve those. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote. Our next item on the agenda is reports from the Terrell Police Department monthly report and the Terrell Fire Department monthly report. What I would ask is for each of the council members to reach out to either the chief of police or the fire chief and review any questions with them that you may need. At this time, we're going to adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following. Section 551.072, deliberations regarding real property. Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development. We are now in executive session. We'll We're going to reconvene into regular session and consider any action from council. Is there any motions?
Motion to approve Resolution 2084.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve Resolution 2084. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.